should we keep quiet as everybody else because there are going to be repercussions over there, or should we put in a light? And I think the best thing right now for Canada, as we see this dirt goes up and up, to just bring it to the light. And he told me yesterday that other inmates told him that they've been asked about the guards to beat Artur, to beat him, and they're going to treat that prisoner nicer. What they do also as a punishment, that we are protesting here every day, as a punishment, they cut the privileges to other inmates. So for them to be so upset with Artur that they will finally start prosecuting him and abuse him and beat him up. But to everybody's surprise, they say, he's our pastor, we won't do it.
Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News at the Calgary Remand Centre, where folks are once again gathered and protesting the ongoing jailing of Pastor Artur Pawlowski. He was denied bail and is facing a series of charges, most seriously now a charge, the first in history in Alberta, under the Critical Infrastructure Defence Act.
You're under arrest for mischief, over.
It is important to remember that all of this, the jailing and charges against Pastor Artur Pawlowski, stem from the fact that he opened his church and fed the homeless throughout COVID-19 restrictions. He also dared to go to the Coutts blockade and preach to some people. That is the extent of his serious offenses, and that is what has landed him behind bars. If you want to learn more about Pastor Artur's story, go to saveartur.com.
Hey, don't resist.
No, he's not resisting.
Stand up.
I'm
not resisting.
Pastor Artur has been in jail, denied bail, as I mentioned, remaining in a room directly behind me here at the Calgary Remand Centre for weeks now. People continue to protest and call for the release of a man who has become, no doubt, the most persecuted man in Canada. Well, there is a barricade of sorts here erected, and protesters are being asked to remain on the other side of it. The crowd now beginning to gather. The Calgary Freedom Rally, which took place earlier today, folks from there often make their way down here slowly. So for now, a small crowd, but surely likely to grow in the coming hours, and likely some members of the family to speak as Pastor Artur Pawlowski remains behind bars. So Pastor Artur Pawlowski, it seems, certainly has become one of the most persecuted men possibly in the history of Canada. I spoke with a number of lawyers seeing if they could think of a comparable. They certainly struggled. What do you make of the ongoing sort of weaponization of the courts and the ongoing jailing of Pastor Artur Pawlowski?
I just find the whole thing extremely unsettling, where you have in Canada a historical precedent of free speech, and it seems like that's no longer the case here. So I find that extremely disturbing, particularly because I think this order is obviously connected to higher levels of government.
So it seems very much that Pastor Artur Pawlowski is one of the most persecuted men in this country, certainly throughout COVID-19, but potentially historically. All of this for daring to open his church, feed the poor, to preach to some truckers, basically exercising his charter rights. How far have we fallen as a country for this to be the case?
Well, I think when, we see, when we see what's happening in Europe with Ukraine and with Russia, and we have these kinds of things happening in our own country, and, we're supposed to be, just the leaders in democracy. And here we have a pastor in prison just for speaking something that, the governing authorities do not like. So I really do think we have fallen, and, just truth has fallen in the streets and, of our country. And, when you think about our grandparents that fought for our freedom, they shed their blood for our freedom. And, it just, it's just really sad to see this happening in our own country.
So now joined by Dave Hughes, who, as you may remember, was driving the vehicle the first time Pastor Artur Pawlowski was arrested. Since that time, we have seen ongoing persecution, innumerable charges. Pastor Artur Pawlowski, very likely one of the most persecuted men in Canada. What have you make of what you've seen since that time?
Well, I'm just grateful for true patriot love and all thy sons command. People are uniting, people are rising up. People realize that now is the time, for such a time as this, to come together and say enough's enough. No more of these New World Order lies and this persecuting a God-fearing man that loves patriotism, loves his country, loves the heart and soul of what Canada is. God, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
This is very personal for us, but it's also very national. On a national level, what is happening right now in Canada. And from the personal side, thank you very much for being here, for my husband, for my family. We are really overwhelmed with the support we get, with prayers, with kind words. We are not alone, and we have so many comments that if some troll will pop up here and there, he's right away choked. So thank you very much. But from national point of view, everybody, by being here, you show us that you understand what is going on in this country, and this is not for some kind of charges. Oh, he went here and there, he parked here and there. He did Christmas last year, one of the criminal charges. He did Christmas last year for homeless, or he did the church outside. Of course, this is just a smoking mirror. We know why he is here, because he is a voice, and he's a very important voice. And I think what is happening right now in Canada is just the beginning. It's just the beginning, because more and more dirt is coming up to the surface. And as I said in a church today, years ago, my husband was called street advocate for a reason. When stories more and more were coming to him about abuse of power in shelters, we couldn't ignore that. And we did something about it. And since then, there's a documentary movie, Street Advocate. And right now, for him being there, the dirt comes up, and we have two choices. We can be quiet because there are going to be repercussions, or we can bring this stage and amplify moment that we have right now, and say right now publicly that whatever they do over there, they broke the law in the name of the law. That's right. And we are all for law and order in this country, especially as Christians. We know what Trudeau said about Christians. We are the lower of the laws. But the truth of the matter is that in Christian faith, we love the law. We love the law because God created law. All the judicial system, it's on a 10 commandments. It's built on the foundation of 10 commandments. So we understand the law. And right now, what is happening in those jails, stories after stories after stories of abuse of power. Even here in this crowd, we have people that experience abuse of power. By bringing this to light, this sin to light, we're going to wait for some kind of reaction. Maybe somewhere, somebody with a little bit of brain is going to do something about it in judicial system. Maybe they are still just police officer, just people that can do something about it. At this moment, sadly, I can say that I don't have politicians that represent us. Not even one called us from past 2 years, not even one. Not even one from Liberal, NDP, Conservative. As for today, I don't have, my family doesn't have politicians that serve us, but we serve God. And this is what is happening in Canada. This is bigger than just a little church and little pastor. This is bigger. Let's keep pushing, let's keep fighting, because the truth always wins.
So the first question I wanted to ask you, Marzena, for those who don't know, Pastor Artur Pawlowski's wife, likely most people know by now, it seems pretty apparent that Pastor Artur Pawlowski is the most persecuted man in Canada, certainly under COVID-19, but quite potentially historically. The targeted persecution for someone not a criminal, not a pimp, not a drug dealer, but a pastor who opened his church and fed the homeless community is entirely unprecedented in Canada, certainly. What do you make of the way that he's being treated, the ongoing persecution, new charges being mustered up every week? It's endless. What do you make of all of this?
You know, right now we have two choices. Either we are going to cry, or we are going to ask ourselves question what this is all about. It, of course, is about corruption of the government. Of course, is about the new tyrannical social liberalism in Canada. So this is. The question is on so many levels, but right now, as a family as well, we have a choice. The information that my husband give me, should we keep quiet as everybody else because there are going to be repercussions over there, or should we put in a light? And I think the best thing right now for Canada, as we see this dirt goes up and up, to just bring it to the light. And he told me yesterday that other inmates told him that they've been asked about the guards to beat Artur, to beat him, and they're going to treat that prisoner nicer. What they do also as a punishment, that we are protesting here every day, as a punishment, they cut the privileges to other inmates. So for them to be so upset with Artur that they will finally start prosecuting him and abuse him and beat him up. But to everybody's surprise, they say, he's our pastor. We won't do it. What is happening right now, they never saw in their life, in their career, if you will. So they are so pleased that somebody's outside, and looks like right now people that are criminals have better values than people working there. Now I'm bringing this to light, and I'm just saying from Minister of Justice to Chief of Police to down the chain, as everything is shaken right now in this country, we should look at this as well. Corruption in those facilities. And my husband found out from other prisoners that this is the worst jail in entire Canada. Worst jail. So one of things that I bring to light, of course, is extremely emotional for us, that my husband is watching us right now from the windows like a dog. It's very, very hard. I'm not going to even pretend that it's not, but we will go through that. But as a family, we decided that we will not keep it quiet. We will not leave this be, because if looks like they are not stopping, we have to bring this to light. Thank you for your support. Thank you for Rebel, for for being one of the, if not the only, right-wing media. So thank you very much, and I want to take this opportunity and thank everybody that supports us with prayers, with word of encouragement. Thank you.
So he's already making friends in there, sharing the gospel, preaching to them, giving many sermons. People come by to listen to the window because they want to hear him speak. The inmates say that they're in solidarity together, that this institution is corrupt, the guards are corrupt, and even the inmates see it.
Guard the animals!
So not every guard here is evil, but most of them are completely corrupt. They want to hurt him. They're punishing the inmates for what we're doing here, actually. My dad said that the inmates told him that they're not letting visitors in. They're not letting family visit the inmates here because of what we're doing here as the protests once a day. All of this is to turn the inmates against my dad so that they will beat him up out of their own free will. Of course, they will not do that because he's a pastor, and that would be sick. I just want them to know that we're watching, we're listening, and if anything happens, everyone will be held accountable. Every last one person is responsible. The warden, the guards, all of your names are going to be taken down. You don't treat people like this, especially someone who is innocent, hasn't been proved guilty, because after all, we live in a society that is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But no, they're punishing him and hurting him before he's had his day in court, before he stood trial for anything. He's not a criminal. He doesn't have a criminal record. He hasn't been convicted of anything. The one contempt of court, the civil contempt of court, is going to be before the Court of Appeal in June. Half the decision was already overturned because it was absolutely outrageous. So again, he's not a criminal. He's a pastor. That's right. You don't get to treat pastors this way.
So Nathaniel Pawlowski, your father literally, in fact, directly behind bars, right over there as we can see him. It seems apparent to me, and I've talked with a number of lawyers, they're struggling to think of a person with the degree of persecution your father has endured, not only presently, certainly under the COVID-19 protocols, but in the history of Canada. What does it feel like, and would you agree that your father probably is one of the most persecuted figures in modern history in Canada?
Absolutely. It seems like the government and the justice system finds any excuse to hammer this guy with the full force of the justice system, quote unquote. I mean, it all started 15 years ago, over 15 years ago, when he was first arrested for reading the Bible, for feeding the poor. I mean, they would go through their little black book, the police, and they would just try to find anything to pin on him. So this is an ongoing battle, and they just don't seem to be stopping. It seems like this is revenge. This is vendetta. They hate him. They hate his voice. And I mean, that's okay. They don't have to love him, but to use the justice system to silence him just because they hate him is wrong. It's innately wrong, and it's not indicative of a free and democratic society. It's completely the opposite. That's what my father escaped when he escaped Poland, a communist regime. He came to Canada for freedom, for freedom of expression, for free speech, for freedom of religion, and this is how he's treated nowadays. So.
And it's extremely concerning and sad to see the courts weaponized as they have been. You might make some argument, even Sarah Miller has conceded, well, perhaps on some of these grounds, a ticket was in order, or a warning. But what we've seen is for every offense, maximum penalties being sought by the justice system, clearly seeking to stifle free speech. Maybe in the early goings, people were apprehensive to use these terms, but I think terms like saying the most persecuted man in Canada and saying a political prisoner are certainly fitting. Have you talked to your dad? How's he holding up?
He's standing strong. He wants to thank everyone for their support, for getting this story out there, for exposing what's going on. I mean, this is wrong. This is not Canada anymore. I've heard of murderers and rapists being let out on bail, but this pastor, he's denied bail because the judge says he's a danger to the public. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, how could you buy into this narrative? It's wrong. It's an abuse of power. He's absolutely a political prisoner. But he says he's standing strong. The guards are treating him quite poorly. The remand center is treating him quite poorly, very differently than any other inmate. So it seems like they are receiving orders from higher up to treat him badly. This is a vendetta. This is revenge. They want to hurt him. They want to punish him for what he's been doing, for exposing the corruption in the government.
No, Sarah Miller doing her very best, working pretty much tirelessly, and Chad and some of the other people to help Artur, thanks to donations at saveartur.com. What's the prognosis like? What's your hope? Do you think he's going to be able to get out? Or do you think that this persecution is going to continue and they're not going to let him out?
Well, I hope that, I believe the next court appearance is March 10th. I hope that the judge decides to do the right thing and lets him out. There's no legal basis or moral basis to keep this pastor behind bars, denying him bail. There's absolutely no reason. The Emergencies Act has been lifted. Mandates are being rescinded. What is the reason for keeping him behind bars? There is none. It's revenge. It's a vendetta. So if they want to keep him in, they're just going to keep exposing their corruption, and they're going to anger the people. So I hope they do the right thing and let him out, and that he's granted bail, and that this persecution comes to an end.
And finally, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to this with the blockades, the convoys, mandates being dropped, some global affairs obviously drawing people's attention. There may be a fear or a concern for some people that Pastor Artur for summer is being forgotten. He has been suffering at the hands of government persecution since the get-go. It's never been more apparent now with this ongoing persecution. What do you say to people out there who have maybe been distracted, maybe have forgotten, or maybe desensitized to the fact that Alberta has a pastor in prison?
Well, it's like my dad has said time and time again, if they came for me, they're going to come for you. If they do this to a pastor, you think they're not going to do this to you, a regular Canadian citizen? If we allow this to happen to this man, it's going to happen to everyone. It's going to set a precedent that the government can't get away with this. So do not forget about this story. Continue fighting for Canada, for your freedoms, because this man has been fighting for Canada for the last 20 years. So now it's time we stand up for him, start fighting for him, and we cannot let the government get away with this. We have to hold them accountable, and we have to tell the Kenny government, the federal government, and the municipal government to stop abusing this pastor.
Well, the crowds continue to grow here as people gather to protest and call for the release of Pastor Artur Pawlowski, his family and his congregation eager to have him out of jail. But for the time being, we don't know when that will be. His bail was denied. Sarah Miller is working to reverse that decision, but we don't have a final word as to when Pastor Artur Pawlowski will be released. We need people to remember this story, to remember that a pastor is still behind bars in Alberta. If you want to help Pastor Artur, you can go to saveartur.com, make a contribution to help pay for his legal defense. As always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Pastor Artur Pawlowski is counting on your support to pay for his legal defense now more than ever. If you want to keep Sarah Miller of JSS Barristers working to get Pastor Artur out of jail, go to saveartur.com now. Any donations you make there will be used to pay for the legal fees of Pastor Artur Pawlowski. They also go directly to the Democracy Fund, a registered Canadian charity. So you're going to receive a tax receipt for your valuable contribution to the fight for Pastor Artur's freedom.